This is our webinar on service work. Really want to kind of have you think maybe outside of the box a little bit here, especially if you're not doing much service work or hasn't been a major part of your business. So one of the things I want you to just open your mind to right up at the top is that there are typically better profit margins on service work as opposed to when you bid a job. You're typically not in a competitive situation, or if you are, it's a limited competitive situation. Like when you bid a job out there and you might have 3 competitors, you might have 30 competitors. So typically less competition does end up in better profit margins. So that's one of the main motivations I want you to think about for service work, is that you can get better margins on the service work. We'll go into that a little bit more in detail as we go here. The other aspect of it is it may open new doors. You know, I know a lot of people right now are so busy that they can't see straight, but over time, you're always looking for new customers. You're always looking for customers that you can develop long-term relationships with, and service work is a good way to do that. Just going in and doing a new project doesn't necessarily give you the same interaction with the customer as doing a service job where there's a there's actually face-to-face contact with the customer often. So opening doors is a major benefit, and hard to measure, but you can definitely see it over the years as you can get your foot in the door with some new customers. I like to think of service work like doing a time and material change order. The process is virtually the same. A service call, so to speak, is where you send an electrician out. They keep track of their time, they keep track of the material, and you bill the customer. Now, on a service call, we call that time material. On a contract job, the same things happen. You can have change orders that are done on a time and material basis. Those are really like service jobs. So even if you're not doing active service work or a lot of active service work, you're probably already doing it, and you may not even be aware of it. When you do a time material extra, that's just like a service call. Again, you keep track of the hours, you keep track of the material, and you bill the customer. Now, we'll talk about the timing of the billing, but again, that's a change order is a can be either a time and material job. The customer says, go do the work, add those new outlets in the conference room, or put in a new panel in the warehouse, and you do it on a time and material basis. It's a change order to an existing job. Again, it's just like a service job. Now, a lot of the time, change orders require an estimate beforehand. So typically, you would use your estimating program to come up with that estimate, or you could use a billing program too and just create a job with the materials and the labor. That works real well for small jobs. If it's a 4-hour job and you have the program priced up with the material, there's no reason to go through the formal process necessarily of doing an estimate. So for small estimates for service work, you could use either a billing program or an estimating program. So again, any of these kind of situations, I think of as under the hat of service work. Same process. So here's a little statistic we dug up doing some research for this topic today. I really was surprised. 40% of the electrical contractor sales in the country are maintenance and service repair, service work. 40%. I think that's a mind-boggling number, and that's what was mentioned to Derek when we were chatting before the webinar here. That probably is a conservative number. There is a lot of service work that's done under the table. You have somebody come out to your house and you pay them for a couple of hours and you just give them the cash or a check. It doesn't necessarily get reported like it should, but there certainly is a lot of service work done under the table, especially in small residential scenarios. So how does that compare to the other sectors of electrical sales? New construction is only 32%. And if you think about the amount of time and energy we put into generating bids for new construction, it's a little bit interesting to see how it ends up in the actual sales picture. And then the other remaining part is retrofit. Again, some retrofit jobs are bid, some are done on a time and material basis, again, like a service job. I think those numbers are pretty interesting. One of the things I mentioned earlier was using service work to expand and open some doors. If you have any niches, oops, there's a little typo there, sorry about that. Whether it's industrial work, whether it's controls, low voltage, retrofit, generators, solar work, batteries. We've got a lot of people in the last several years have been offering generator installations, both residential and commercial. Same thing with solar, residential and commercial. Batteries are a big thing now. Again, residential and commercial. If you've got a solar system, it's even more beneficial if you can store that power and use it when you need it. So any of those niches may be something that you can get your put in better too by doing service work for those particular specialties. If you have people and skills in any of those areas. And maybe something that people don't think of very often is providing service work after you've completed construction. I think a lot of the time, you do the job, you never even maybe meet the customer more than once or twice, and I think we're all probably negligent in not following up and at least doing a little bit of PR work and letting the customer know that you do service work, you know their facility, you know their needs, and let them know that you're happy to do service work for them. So all those jobs you do, new construction, those are all potential new service customers. Service contracts is a whole aspect of this that I not going to go into. I don't have a lot of expertise on it, but service contracts are, a very common thing in a lot of the trades, HVAC, plumbing, and there's a lot of electrical contractors who offer service contracts. It could be something simple like you guarantee a certain rate if they have a service contract with you, so they don't have to, they know what the hourly rates are going to be and that kind of thing. Or it could be a maintenance situation where a maintenance and repair situation where you agree to do certain services like repair electrical outlets, switches, circuit breakers, so that kind of thing. So there's a whole variety of different service contracts that you might want to look into. And again, it's getting that constant flow of money. Bidding new construction is starting over every day. And the next job is a new adventure, where service work, you build up a clientele, you build up a pipeline, and there's a lot more of a constant flow of revenue. And service contracts can definitely add to that. Another benefit of doing service work is it gives you maybe a little more ability to juggle your labor force. If you've got, let's say, 10 electricians and 2 or 3 of them are typically doing service work and the rest are doing new construction, and you need a couple extra people on a job, you might be able to pull them away from the service work a little bit, and vice versa. If you've got a couple extra service calls, you might be able to pull the guys off of the new construction and put them on a service call. I really think that there are people who are better suited to new construction versus service, and to some extent, you want to take advantage of that. The electrician who's very methodical and thorough, maybe really good with working with customers face to face, that may be a great service electrician. He or she may not be your best production electrician, because they don't work as fast. When the other guys, the guys in the field who are, all about production and maybe don't have the best customer relation skills, they may not be the best service person. So you do need to look at the type of person, those people who can be an ambassador for your company and you know, can be really a benefit on the service side of the business. But again, if you have a mix of people, you can juggle things. If you don't have any service people, or then you don't have the ability to shift people a little bit if you're totally dedicated to one side of the business or the other. Kind of referred to this one earlier. There's less competition typically for service work. A lot of the time, the customer just picks up the phone and says, they tell you they need some new lighting in their warehouse or in their office, and you just go out and do it. Where when we bid jobs, it can be very competitive, even in today's market, where there's a lot of work out there. It's always competitive. One of the things I don't have a slide on, and I really want to mention here, is the difference between doing residential service work and commercial service work. They definitely have their pros and cons. Residential service work is a whole specialty in my mind. You have a lot of the time you need to get paid on the spot. Where commercial service work, they don't expect that. They expect you're going to send them an invoice after you complete the work. So it is a whole different aspect of the business. And the reason I'm mentioning that now is that maybe more so than commercial, there's a lot more competition for residential service work. And again, that's going to vary from market to market, whether you're in a rural area or a metropolitan area. A lot of those factors come into play. But there's definitely a different slant to whether you're doing residential service work or whether you're doing commercial service work. So I believe one of the main hesitancies to getting into service work is not having a good system to process the jobs. And there's lots of solutions out there. One that we offer is a time and material billing program. And there's kind of two phases of it. Prior to all the app devices, and we still use our time and material billing program as a tool you can use without a remote device. But basically, you use the time and material program to generate the cost of material and the cost of labor. So here's the problem with T&M work, and I think a lot of people resist it, is they don't have a good system of recording the material in the field. Whether it's on a piece of paper like this we call a work order, which is part of our billing program, or whether they use an app, a remote app, to record the material, that makes a big difference in the whole process. You really have to commit to getting the material and labor recorded on the job site, not at the end of the day when the electrician's back at the shop, certainly not the next day or the next week. You'll be lucky if a guy works on 20 jobs during the week, or even if they only work on a couple jobs during the week, the chances of remembering what they used out of the is just not good. They're going to forget things. You really need to require that they record the material and labor in the field. With a remote device, you can actually generate the cost and collect payment right there on the spot. If you're not ready to gear up to using a remote device, then you can just use the billing application to generate the invoice and send it to the customer. And again, I keep going back to this. I think a lot of people hesitate to do service work because they think it's too much of a hassle. Well, part of the hassle, getting rid of the hassle, is having good methods of doing the process that overcome that. A remote app like we offer improves communication in the field. They've got their smart device, phone or tablet right there, and they record the material, and it gets recorded in the system right there. So and you can also transmit to the electricians any new jobs that need to be done. So it's a two-way process. The call comes into the company, somebody inputs it into the system, and then it goes out to the electrician who's going to do the work. So they got the information right there on their phone or tablet, where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do, and then the app has a couple of ways to record the material, but there's a database of frequently used items, and then there's a more comprehensive database of um, most of the electrical materials, and they can always add things on the fly too. But getting that communication tightened between the electrician and the field and the process of finalizing the invoice is really important. So that's all about proper recording of material and labor. Standardizing your pricing is a big aspect of the service work. I remember when I worked for my dad's company. I grew up around the electrical business, even though I've been doing software development training for the last 25, 30 years. I remember it was always a big headache. That nobody besides my dad could price up the material on an invoice, and I hear the same thing from our customers today. They have to require an person with electrical knowledge to do the invoicing or to do the pricing on the invoicing. Where if you have an application, a program that has the pricing built in, it's standardized, you can still adjust your markups and your discounts and your labor rates and all that, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you price up a 20 feet of half-inch EMT. It's already built into the system. So all these procedures that you need to develop for effectively billing your service work are really important. That's what's going to take the headaches out of it, is if you build the foundation in your company to efficiently process the service jobs, the headaches are going to go away to a large extent, and it's going to make it more profitable. As far as markups on service work, I think, again, that's one of the hesitancies I see is when I talk to somebody who's doing service work and they're really not happy about it, and I ask them, well, how much are you marking up your material? How much are you marking up your labor? They're really afraid to mark up material. And my argument against that is that most of your customers aren't very savvy about material. They not only probably don't know what half-inch EMT is, they're not going to know what uh, a set screw connector is versus a compression coupling. They're not going to have that knowledge of the details of the trade. Um, there's a lot of materials that the average customer just doesn't even know what they are. Um, and there's always that worry that they are gonna complain about something that um, their perception is you're overcharging them. Uh, Two ways to deal with that. One is just to explain to the customer that you know you understand they can go to a Home Depot or a Lowe's and buy materials. Some of the materials cheaper, but Home Depot and Lowe's is not going to warranty the materials uh, or the work, obviously, because they're not doing it, and they're not even really going to be helpful in using the correct materials in the first place. That's what your customer is paying you for. The other option is just to pay attention to those what I call trigger items, and don't put as much markup on those. Romex 12.2 and 14.2 are fairly common items, certainly in the residential world, and you may just want to bite the bullet and don't mark those up as much. And also, don't be afraid to charge a profitable labor rate. Again, this is not competitive bidding. It's a different scenario. You got to take that hat off and look at it differently. You're providing a service um, that is unique. You have electricians with lots of training. You have a business and electrical knowledge that you're providing them, and you should be charging hourly rates that reflect that. So anyway, I run across people all the time that are marking up their material 10 or 15% like they might on a bid, maybe 20%. The ones who really succeed at service work, time and material work, are the ones who put a big markup on their material and labor. I don't think it's out of line to mark up material 100%. Interestingly, we've also worked with plumbing contractors over the years. They have no hesitancy about charging hourly rates that are, worth their while and marking up material. a substantial amount that you might not even be comfortable with, especially if your background is bidding work. So you really need to take a different perspective on things, I think, to really take an honest look at service work.